Ray Muscat?
Dearborn Heights.
Dearborn Heights. Diane Brown. Garden City. Is there somebody else?
Fred Chatko.
Fred Chatko.
Northville. Liz Jarvis, Livonia Public Schools. Liz, we're fighting for those kids to have a park system after we're gone. The agenda is going to change a little bit tonight because we discovered that our star performer, Carl, help me with your name. Carl, is going to do a slideshow for us about research he did on the history of Hines. I wanted him to show this show because this is a person who has nothing to gain by spending hours and hours researching the newspaper on this history of Hines. It shows how significant Hines Park is to him. And Carl, I want to thank you profusely for arranging the library, letting us view your collection of data on Hines Park. I want you to all applaud for the Wayne County Park System. In October this year, it'll be 100 years old. Before Carl starts to razzle and dazzle us all, I want you to know that the Wayne County Park System is one of the oldest county park systems in America. It got its roots in 1913 when the Wayne County Road Commissioners, Edward Hines, Edward Butler, and John Haggerty decided that Wayne County needed a park system, and they were empowered by what New York was doing for a parkway system in their towns. It took them to 1919 to actually get some land donated for the park system. That's Elizabeth Park. I'm not here to give you the history of Wayne County Parks. What I'm telling you is that this park system, specifically Hines Park, defined America in the 20th century, and there is no park system in America that can make that claim. Because on this little sliver of river known as the middle branch of the Rouge River, we had the fight for freedom as escaping slaves used it to get to Canada. We had the first and largest auto production plant in the world at the mouth of the Rouge in the Detroit River. We became an integral part of the arsenal of democracy. The first women to work in the auto industry got started in one of the village industry plants. They eventually got relocated to Yankee Airport and became the Rosie the Riveters. We were the first county in Michigan to introduce a stormwater ordinance. We were also the first to produce an X-ray tube in 1832. If you think about what defined America in the 20th century, all those elements are a very strong part of that heritage. I want you to know that that's what's at risk, is that our kids will not have the chance to discover the magnificence of what happened in this area that not only defined America, but actually changed the world from this point on with the creation of automation and the automobile industry. I now want Carl to come up and share with us his hard work on this slideshow, because he's got to go back to work.
Well, thank you, Nancy. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Bennett Civic Center Library, I just want to welcome you all to our library. Glitches do happen, but we can get through it. Phenomenal crowd. When the idea was brought to us to host this event I just thought it would be sort of an interesting thing to do to maybe look back and see where Hines Park came from, the idea, give you a little bit about the past. Okay? You know, I live in Canton, and I make my commute every day, and sometimes I'll take Stark Weather to 5 Mile, which takes me right down by Hines Park. And I'm wondering just how many of us simply take for granted now just the Hines Park. We can drive right by it. Okay, there's a lake there. Sometimes I'll see the turkeys walking around the senior home, you know, and it was like, oh wow, turkeys. You know, you don't usually see that. And it's, when I take a look at my time in this particular area, I grew up in Toledo and moved to Livonia after we got married and raised my sons there. But off and on, we would find ourselves going to Hines Park. We would be walking the trails with the boys. You know, I'd be trying to keep up with them on the slides. Okay? Tobogganing, and do they still toboggan, or do they do sledding, or, you know, it's snowboarding, so forget that. So mine was sledding. Just sit on it and let it coast, and that was it. Okay? So many people may not realize that this particular system is in fact, you know, 90 to 100 years old. So we're going to start in the year 1929, okay, 90 years ago. And in 1929, some of the things that happened is, well, if anybody knows who this gentleman is, it's Leroy Robert Ripley. And Ripley's, believe it or not, was founded in 1929. The first Academy Awards took place in Hollywood. Ernest Hemingway's Farewell to Arms, Eric Maria Remarque's All Quiet on the Western Front were published. February 4th, 1929, there was approximately 1 million Ford Model A's were sold by that time. By July 24th, there were 2 million sold. Now, we all had history in grade school. We all had history in high school. 1929 was what? What's 1929 known for? Okay, I shouldn't have even put that slide in. That was way too easy. You're right. Well, a little while after, on Sunday, November 3rd, 1929, the Detroit Free Press came out and stated, huge parkway system planned for the Rouge Valley. Okay? This was the start of your Hines Park. Okay? The potential to develop a system of parkways was recognized by the Wayne County Road Commissioners, and they were going to develop it similar to that of the Bronx Parkway in suburban New York City. 2 months prior, in September, the Board of Supervisors awarded a tax of 1/4 mil to the commission to start work. So they decided that construction would begin in the northwest corner of Wayne County, in the Upper Rouge West Branch, where, quote, for a modest sum can be made to show the best advantage. And if this project finds public favor, it was their hope to make additional appropriations to extend the parkway down to Michigan Avenue. Okay. So Mr. Edward Hines and the Road Commission actually also foresaw a similar system along the Huron River Valley, eventually linking the Rouge and Huron systems into one scenic route. Now the purpose of it was to give the people of Wayne County a chain of well-paved drives through attractive rural settings. This would be great for tourists, it's going to be great for those coming in from Detroit, and it's going to be great for the residents of Wayne County. And once citizens began to see the parkway coming together and recognize the plan's general merit, they thought the people are going to just be so ecstatic about this particular project. So the engineers of the Road Commission began to map out the project in ways to preserve the natural beauty of the area. Now, recall a little while ago how they wanted it to be similar to that of the Bronx, but the geography and the strata was very different. In New York, you're dealing with cliffs and stone-faced hills, whereas here, we're dealing with sloping banks along the river. And it was also their goal to develop and try to preserve the natural vegetation and the trees along that way as well. Now, at this particular time period, they really didn't give a specific time frame of when they were going to have this project completed, because they figured we're going to see what the public reaction is going to be. On June 22nd, 1930, the Free Press reported the announcement of $13 million worth of road projects. And within the article, it does stipulate, regarding the parkway system, it was announced that it acquired 60 acres for a new park at Plymouth as its nucleus. And once completed, the full park will be known as Plymouth Riverside Park. Some of the phrases that they had within the article. For example, quote, "Speed of traffic will be of secondary factor." Okay, and I just found that sort of funny reading it in 2018, 2019. Yeah. By eliminating crossings, it will allow for continuous, quote unquote, high speed in a manner familiar only upon main highways. Okay, once again, no. Once completed, a possible ban upon through commercial traffic would be considered. And in this way, it would simply guarantee the parkway was there for leisure and touristy kind of travel. Also, what developed was the announcement of more public comfort stations. Okay. This was a feature that originated in Wayne County and provided a convenience to the motorist that no other section of the county affords. Less than a month later, July 13, 1930, Plymouth Riverside Park was announced open to the public. 60 acres just east of Plymouth, new public comfort station, the underbrush thoroughly cleaned out, the channel of the Rouge straightened out, channel riprap to prevent flooding and scouring of the banks, a children's playground with swings and slides, and rustic bridges built across the Rouge River. Okay. 1931 brings even more improvements. 19 parcels of land for the construction of an 8-mile-long River Rouge Parkway extending from Northville to Newburgh. In December 1932, it was reported that the first rigid frame bridges in Michigan were to be built at the 6-mile road crossings of the Rouge River and the Middle Rouge Parkway. In 1933, with the completion of the Newburgh Road combination dam and bridge of the River Rouge that you see there, just beyond Plymouth and Ann Arbor Road, residents were informed of a new lake was being created. The lake was to be a mile long, 19 feet deep, and contain a small island. The land for the lake was dedicated to the county without cost by Henry Ford. March 11, 1934, the Detroit Free Press emphasized the importance of parks, their creation, and the dedication by Wayne County to provide these national wonders to the citizens and all of its visitors. In the article, it mentioned that in 1933, 1,761,463 people visited the parks of Wayne County. 1933. It also mentions Elizabeth Park, which was downriver, and stated that that park was reclaimed from a cattail swamp. It's accessible by excursion steamer and by highway, and it attracted more than 500,000 visitors. Okay. But That's not good enough for number one. The number one spot in 1933, that went to, and I quote, the ample facilities in the Plymouth Riverside Park, which although it only includes 58 acres, it attracted 818,261 visitors. We're number one. And then also in this particular article, you could see that those are the developed areas of the parks, and these were going to be the upcoming ones of the Huron and then Rouge there. Taking a look at the plat maps of 1936 of Plymouth and Livonia townships, I apologize for the blurriness of this, but when you try to screen capture off the internet, it doesn't really take sometimes. But hopefully on these two, you can see, that as you come down, you can see definitely, there's the Rouge, there's Hines Park, from Northville all the way down to Newburgh Lake and Newburgh right here. Okay. Now, 1936, it'll be after World War II. It'll be the spring of 1943 when the Parkway Authority begins acquiring land to extend Middle Rouge from Newburgh Lake to Rouge Park at Warren Avenue. Okay. Now, before I go to the next slide, is there a Thomas Murphy here? No? Harold Monroe. Okay, 0 for 2. George Papazzi. Okay, then good, I can show this slide. Okay, well it seems as though there was a lot of times, and this taken from the October 5th, 1953 Detroit Free Press, where 70 teenage park revelers were nabbed. And the individuals that I mentioned before, well, they were actually cited for bringing beer into the park, and then their parents were called and had to, take them home for whatever kind of things their parents were going to do to them. Okay? So we can see here that this particular headline sort of tops India threatened by Korea and POWs. And then, Russia was really getting upset, Russia's H-bomb was really upsetting us, but the headline was, you gotta watch those people going to Hines Park. Okay. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that was just a glimpse of our illustrious past. And I'm glad I heard the chuckles and stuff like that, because that's what it was all about. And that's what we're gonna try to preserve. So with that, I showed you a glimpse of the past. And now I'm going to turn it over to Nancy, who will discuss the present and the future.